You're fine. All right. I think they can hear you now.
Can y'all hear me now?
I don't know.
I guess we'll find out.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Waking Up.
Hi. Yeah. I think we're both audible. So, all right, I'll put this off to side. It's a little loud. I'll turn that down. Got to make sure our voices are heard after the mistake I made last week. Welcome to Waking Up. Well, that's what I meant on Tuesday. That's what I was talking about on Tuesday. Yeah. So, welcome to Waking Up. This is our podcast about religious trauma, regular trauma, and everything in between. I am Pep, aka Sean, and with me is my co-host Anna Arugs, the Dragon. We're both known by many names. Hi.
Hello, everyone.
We'll start with the disclaimer.
The disclaimer. I'm not going to let you do that disclaimer.
Are you saying I'm awkward?
I'm saying that you miss things in the disclaimer, which totally defeats the purpose of the disclaimer. All right, here on Waking Up, we are not here to bash anybody's religious faith or their religion. We think that faith and religion are beautiful things when done in a mental and emotional healthy manner. We are not healthcare professionals. Mm-mm. And I don't even know how people can assume that we're healthcare professionals because But anyway, some people want to try and take our advice. That's like, no. We are not healthcare professionals. We are not certified in anything. Well, at least that has to do with the mental health profession. So we are not certified therapists, counselors, any of that. So anything that we say on here is our own personal opinions. It is our personal experiences. It is methods and strategies that we use personally. They are not to replace any type of healthcare advice that you get. It is just sharing our experiences and what works for us. If you do need mental health help, you can contact us at Nerd Mom Mace. No longer on TikTok because TikTok's dead. But you can contact us at Nerd Mom Mace on the socials, and we will be happy to get you some links to some resources for you. And Sean and I were raised in the Carolinas, which is the buckle of the Bible Belt. And for those of you who don't know, the Bible Belt is a strip of very religious states. It's a thing. Look it up. It's fascinating. But we grew up in Billy Graham territory. We were raised as Southern Baptist, which is a conservative evangelical denomination of the Christian faith. And I didn't know how it was possible, but I feel like they've gotten more conservative over time. So, yeah, that's I didn't think that was a thing, but here we are. We grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, and I started deconstructing pretty much deconstructing at the age of 18. Sean at 40.
Yep.
We have a little bit of a different slant and aspect, and we talk about our trauma here, and not just religious trauma. We talk about all sorts of trauma, and we've realized that a lot of that has bled over into things, but here we are.
Yeah.
We have
our
show
experiences.
We talk about trauma.
We have a show.
Our two trauma Triscuits on the internet.
We're square. Trauma Triscuits. I'm square.
Triscuit is a triangle, isn't it?
No, they can be, but usually most of them are thought were square. Or are they not? Now,
I don't know.
Now that's going to bother me. Are Triscuits triangles or squares? I think you're right. You're looking it up, aren't you? Because this is what
you were right. It's actually a square. It is a square.
Sweet. But I think some of them are triangles. I think we're both right. This is the ADD part of our show.
Actually, some of them are triangles, so we are both right.
See, we're both correct. Exactly. There you go.
Wow.
You
go. All right, Sean.
Oh my God.
What are we talking
what's
about
your topic? All right. So our topic is something that's come up. The reason I picked this topic has come up in my therapy. It came up in my session this past week. And so today we are talking about.
I can hear the show in the background, Sean.
Oh, is it really? Wow.
Yes.
I don't. My mic is a lot more sensitive than I thought. Apparently. All right, I turned it down.
I hear it because your headphones are noise canceling.
That's a good point. That's a good point. All right. So is it good now? No echo? Echo.
You're good.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So came up with my therapy. So coming up with the topic. The topic today is religion and emotional abandonment when faith leaves you isolated. And though we do cover religious trauma and the tie-in with how we grew up in the religion, this goes beyond just the what the church did. This is also how we grew up in, or how I grew up in, with my family. But a lot of times when you grow up in the Bible Belt, those themselves tend to overlap like a stack of pancakes. So religion and emotional abandonment when faith leaves you isolated. So I was thinking about emotional abandonment, and how it showed up from the church, how it showed up from my family, how it shows up for me. So in my childhood, how it shows up for me as an adult, because it was not something that like just came to mind. It was something that the therapist had to go, oh yeah, it sounds like you're doing this. Fantastic. Okay, what is that? So emotional abandonment, I would consider when you're feeling neglected, unseen, or unworthy of emotional support. And anyone that's watched the episode, our episodes, knows that I struggle with my emotions. That's a thing. I struggle with feeling my emotions. I know, right? It's shocker.
Shut up.
What? I know. Breaking news. I struggle with my emotions. Hot take. Slow, dramatic drink from the coffee. All right. So, I struggle with my emotions. I struggle with feeling my emotions, identifying my emotions, validating and communicating, like pretty much all aspects of dealing with emotions. I have not done well for most of my life.
So what is your difficulty with dealing with emotions? What does that have to do with emotional abandonment?
So I have felt unseen or unsupported or neglected. My emotions weren't important. And my emotions, when people around me convey that my emotions aren't important, then I internalize that my emotions must not be important.
But here's my question. Okay, so okay. I can see when you were younger in your developmental years, and especially in religion and growing up, because I mean, mine in religion and in the faith, like it doesn't matter how you feel. You're gonna feel whatever it is, and give it to God, and you must feel these emotions. Okay, and then in our family, we've talked about it doesn't really fucking matter how we feel about it. It is what it is. But now, as an adult, is it actually people not acknowledging or validating your emotion, or is it your perceived way? Yes. Is it the fact that you're not necessarily being emotionally abandoned, you are perceiving the abandonment?
I'm emotionally abandoning myself.
So the other person is already like, oh, the other person doesn't care about my feelings, but the person does care about your feelings. You're just telling yourself that. That's
correct. Yes, I have internalized. Absolutely, yes. I have internalized that. So whereas before, when I was a kid, you try to show emotions and then they're invalidated. And so I skip a step. So now that I'm an adult, I skip that step. I skip the, hey, let me share my emotion, and then the other person reacts to it or invalidates it. I'm expecting them to invalidate it. I just go, well, why should I convey my emotion? Why should I communicate how I feel when the person's just going to abandon it? So I'm just not going to communicate how I feel. So I emotionally abandon myself because I don't give the people around me the opportunity to react how they're going to react. and it is pervasive and daily. It is such a common occurrence for me, and it's really one of the hardest things that it's one of the hardest things that I've had to deal with, that I've had to try to work on. And unfortunately, I'm not making I haven't made a lot of progress. I made some progress, but not as much as I'd like to have made.
What do you mean?
I still find it extremely difficult to convey how I feel about something, to convey my emotions, I should say, to convey to anyone, to everyone. It's when I think about oh, this someone said this, someone did this, and this is how I feel about it. My
Mhm.
first thought is it's not that big of a deal. It's saying I don't need to, I don't need to worry about it. It's not what they meant, or why convey it when they're just going to invalidate it. I make assumptions. I look for evidence to support how I view myself, how I view my emotions as not important, as minimized. I look for evidence to support that.
Why?
Because I don't feel worthy of it. Because I don't feel deserving of it. It is a hard one.
You chose this topic. This
I
wasn't
know,
me.
but I know I chose this topic, but I chose it because I don't want to. You remember what it was like when I chose topics early on in our podcast? Those topics were like research topics.
Oh my god, I do remember
So
that.
so when I was thinking about
It was
a
story
topic, I
time
was
with
like,
Sean. It
it
wasn't
was
actually like it was pretty bad.
it was story time with me, and I remember you going, but how did it make you feel? What were you feeling? What were the emotions? And I'm like, oh, here's the story. Here's what happened. But what did you feel? So to convey, I get so just thinking about it, okay, I feel this way. I should tell the person how I felt. So somebody did something, I should tell them how they felt. Immediate anxiety. Immediately my brain starts to go into, they're just going to minimize it. It's not going to matter. They're going to fight about it. I'm going to have to prove it. I'm going to, a lot of the experiences that I've had, or the things that I tell myself, that's the go-to reaction of my nervous system. It sucks. I don't give.
How do you? I guess it's one of those. I have suffered, like I suffer from emotional abandonment, but it's something that I don't know. I feel like for me went away when, and it hasn't completely gone away. Don't get me wrong. I still that it still comes up, but didn't become quite as prevalent when I started understanding it is not somebody's job to validate my feelings. And I started working on my feelings are valid, regardless of whether they are like, whether I feel this way because of a perceived whatever. But then I understood that it is not somebody else's job to regulate my own emotions. It is my job to handle my emotions. And I feel like that, like, perceived of, well, they don't understand me, or they don't, well, you know what, that also went away when I understood I can't control other people and how they see me, and I can say what I need to say, and I can make it. I think for me, that intense feeling of anxiety of it got much less the more I started feeling greater and more confident in that my feelings are valid regardless of what anyone else says or thinks about them. And I think that because I used to be that way too. It's like it was like my feelings weren't valid if somebody else didn't accept them. It was somebody, it was like my feelings weren't valid unless somebody understood why I felt that way and accepted why I felt that way and then made the changes to adjust to that. And that's a hard way to go about, like, because you can't control other people. So it made me very frustrated and unseen and unheard. And I don't know how you feel about that, but it does make me feel unseen and unheard, because when I tried so hard and I spent a lot of my effort in trying to get that person to understand and see why I'm feeling this way, but it's not that's a whole wrong way to approach communicating how I felt. It was more so like I wasn't being open. I was debating. I wasn't being open and vulnerable. What I was doing was litigating. And
yeah,
that's not that you feel let, because that puts people instantly on a defensive. But that's just my experience.
Absolutely. The litigating thing has been a big part. It was a massive part of my marriage. That's where I think a lot of conditioning occurred over my adulthood.
Hi, McMahon.
Hey, Twannis. That a lot of that occurred in my marriage. Is I felt the need to litigate my emotion, litigate my feelings, litigate. I couldn't talk about how I felt without having an outline explaining why. So that's still, and that still comes up in my mind. That's still a thought that comes up. Well, are my feelings justified? And that's why I have to remind myself that how I feel is how I feel. It's always justified. My emotions are not wrong. My emotions are not wrong. How you both doing? Good Sunday. Lurkin is trying to mod my
Fallout New Vegas. I have yet to play that.
Heck yeah.
I've sort of a 76. I was actually having this conversation. I was sidetrack on this, but 76 has become less feeling like Fallout.
Mm-hmm.
It's feeling more and more less like Fallout. And I but the only reason that I keep up with 76 because it's the only one that you can play with other people. Like, yeah. But I love Fallout lore. But anyway, sorry. He said Fallout New Vegas, and I went off on that.
Yeah, you say Fallout, it kind of takes us in a conversation. I've played it for a little bit. I haven't played very much. Yeah. I haven't touched Fallout 76 in a while. I
know.
Yeah.
I used to stream 76. That's like that's
right?
a lot. Like yeah. How much I've fallen out with it. Yeah. I mean, I still love it. I have the Pip-Boy. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's Sean's Pip-Boy that he left with me. So
it was given.
And then I have this one. That was my favorite. My Mothman from Jay, and then my Nika Shine bottle. That one. Yeah, well, maybe we can do a community game night where
I think we should
hop into 76.
Now, Twannis is on the other side of the country, right, Twannis? Or not the country, other side of the globe, several hours away. So we could definitely do something. We just have to coordinate time zones.
But okay, Shauna, my question also for you is
other side of the pond.
Other side of the pond. We do have a lot of people on the other side of the pond, don't we?
We do. I'm okay with that.
I mean, me too. Maybe we can do just have an excuse to go over.
It's the Team AOA World Community Night.
World Tour.
Yeah.
I think for this I don't know, with the emotional abandonment, I think that, like I said before, in my formative years, and yeah, it was a huge thing. Mm-hmm. I was emotionally neglected. I was and religion did have a lot to do with that. But I've been working on is understanding that, and like they say in DBT, it is not my fault that it happened to me, but it is my fault with how I heal from it. And it is my responsibility to heal from it. Hi, Calvino. And so I found and I discovered for myself that I was spending a lot of, and I think honestly, this actually helped me a lot in my arguments and my disagreements and my conflicts, because what was happening was, for me, I was triggered. So I would feel an emotion. I would try to convey that emotion, and I instantly would feel frustrated, and I would feel unseen, and I would feel like this person then I, instead of, and it's not that they didn't want to understand where I was coming from. It was that because I was triggered, I instantly, in my head, went to, well, they don't understand me and they don't want to understand me. And I would either shut down or I would fight back hard, and I would get frustrated and I would get angry because they didn't understand and they didn't want to understand me. And they were and I made them this enemy and it wasn't that. Like, I instantly went to, well, they just don't care. They do care. They do want, just because they maybe don't agree with it doesn't mean they don't care. But because I was constantly fighting that battle as a child, that's just sort of how I went into as an adult. It was, I didn't realize I was getting triggered by that emotional abandonment, by that abandonment wound of that. And that's what it is I was getting triggered. That abandonment wound was getting triggered in an argument, especially or especially in something that's a hot button topic or that you don't agree with. Like you can agree to disagree and all these different things. But I instantly went to, they just don't understand me. And so instead of taking a breath, taking a step back, and then letting my trigger responses come down so that I could clearly convey, okay. Instead, I would let my trigger self take control, and the abandonment wound would then take control, and that trigger would take control. And so I realized I wasn't communicating. So no, of course they didn't understand why I was upset, or why I felt the way I did, or what all these things. And I realized, and it's a hard pill to swallow, I realized that I wasn't actually conveying what I was thinking or feeling, because I was doing it through a triggered state. I was doing it through a lens. And then all of a sudden I'm just like, well, of course they don't understand me, because I'm not communicating effectively, because I'm communicating from a triggered state. And I'm having to, and I think that's why it's so important in that, especially in abandonment, in those abandonment wounds, however you react to it. You can, anxious attachment, avoidant, all of that. There's a whole thing on that. But that's why I think I got so frustrated and I felt so neglected. And I then, in turn, because I was not communicating, they weren't understanding, I would then instantly go, they just don't want to. I'm communicating, they just don't want to understand. When I realized that I wasn't really doing a good job of communicating. But when I took a breath and I started learning my triggers, going, hey, I'm feeling a little triggered by this. I don't think and even when I'm in the middle of a trigger, going, you know what, I don't think I'm communicating this right. I feel I'm triggered. Can we take a minute? Let me get myself calmed down. And then can we come back to this? Just understanding myself and my triggers and my body and my reactions has made a whole world of difference in that feeling of abandonment. I mean, it's not going to stop that wound from getting, poked at and prodded at, but it's also going to not keep the wound bleeding.
That's good.
Bingo.
Yeah. No, that's. It sounds like that's an important lesson to learn. And I'm in that place where I'm trying to understand kind of what you're talking about is like if something happened and like my first thing, because I'm so used to not communicating my emotions, I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I need to communicate my emotion. I need to be able to communicate what I'm feeling and what they did and how I felt about what they did, because
Mhm.
I don't do that. I rarely ever do that. So like, there's a push. I'm pushing myself to communicate that. However, what you're saying really clicked with me, because you're like, I feel triggered, and so what I feel right now, but communicating at that moment is not the right move. And so like, that's where I'm having a hard time. It's a challenge for me to differentiate, is because something happened recently, and like, I got upset, and then I was like, okay, I need to communicate that. And I didn't. And then I started feeling bad. I'm like, damn. And I started beating myself up because I didn't communicate that emotion. I didn't communicate how I felt at that moment. And then I sat with it, and I started feeling bad. But then I sat with it for a bit, and then I was like, oh, what I was feeling was because I was triggered by this, and I was triggered because I felt abandoned. Kind of like what you're saying, that abandonment wound is hard. And then,
Very
and
hard.
as I thought through it some more, and I came off, my trigger, I came off being triggered, and I began regulating. I went, oh, they did this. I felt this way, but I felt this way not because like they did anything wrong, but because I felt abandoned. I get triggered by that. I don't need to communicate that what happened, because by communicating it, I'm looking for them to regulate me. Um, but I know I felt abandoned because of the story I told myself, not because of necessarily what they did. I was telling myself a story, and that's where I got triggered. And so I have evidence that's contrary to that story. Oh, okay. I don't actually need to communicate how I felt, because I was just feeling abandoned and dysregulated. And now I've realized what's going on, and so I don't necessarily need to communicate that. That's the challenge that I'm in right now, is I need to communicate. Do I need to communicate that? Do I need to say that, or am I just feeling triggered and I just need to regulate myself?
I think that when you're in that healing process, and you're in that healing process, which is
Yeah.
it's good. It's hard. It's hard. But I
Yeah.
think, just like in any type of thing, when you first start in your work, and you first start in that type of thing, you were doing opposite action. I know what is normal for me is to not communicate. So I'm going to communicate. I'm going to do the thing every single time. And it's just that it's to get yourself in the habit of communicating, and get yourself in the habit of being honest, and get yourself in that, making that the normal for you. But then you get to this point to where then it's trauma dumping. Then you're just like, here, I'm just going to tell you everything that I feel. And yes, there's some merit to that. And yes, I don't think that you should be dishonest and all of that. But then there becomes a point where it's like, am I communicating this emotion because I actually feel like this person needs to know? Or am I communicating this emotion to make myself feel better, so that they will help me feel better, so they will give me validation, so they will do all these things? And it's one of those, am I telling this person and communicating this person this emotion because I don't want to do the work, because I want to share the burden, because I don't want to and I'm not, and that is, again, it's just like anything else. That's your own personal preference with how much and little you share. Yes, you should always communicate, especially if it involves somebody, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to communicate right at that second. Hey, you know, I just wanted to let you know, or like, even then, even if it's a minor thing, you have to accept the fact that if they didn't do anything wrong, if they're just living their life and it's your story that you tell, that's for you to deal with. And maybe that person doesn't need to know that, oh, I got triggered because you did this, but they were just living their life. It's not their
That's not on them.
responsibility. That's not on them. That's on me. Yeah.
And that's what I came to. As I was starting to think it through, I was like, okay, so if I communicate this, what am I expecting out of that communication? What am I looking for? Am I expecting them? And I'm like, they didn't do anything wrong. Am I expecting them to do something different? Am I expecting them to change anything? Am I expecting? No, they're just living their life. And I got caught up in a story I told myself. Oh, dang it. Okay, that's where I'm at. All right, now I don't feel bad for not communicating it, because that communicating was actually the wrong choice. But that's the struggle. That's kind of the challenge I have right now, is like, I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to understand that communication. Am I communicating? Am I not communicating because I'm dysregulated and I need to get to that? I need to be able to regulate myself, because for the longest time I haven't been able to regulate myself. Or or do I need to communicate because it's something that really does need to be communicated, because they did something that upset me, and I want them to know that, because I don't want them to do that again, or
I think I view it as, because I'm a parent and also an educator, so I sort of view the healing process sort of like, because you are healing your inner child. It's that process of there comes a point where your kid comes to you. Ooh, I'm gonna sneeze.
Oh no! Oh, mute your mic. Bless you.
But it's weird. It's like,
it's that tingle. I hate that. Tingle.
All right. Maybe I won't sneeze. Maybe I'll just randomly sneeze in the mic. I would like to apologize in advance if I do. Okay. So I think of it as that whole inner child where you are, especially with the emotional abandonment, as you and I, like, our feelings weren't heard. We weren't heard. Mm-hmm. Mom, I have an owie. Mom, I have an owie. My finger hurts. Mm-hmm. An owie. It hurts. And you expect somebody else to fix it or validate it, or go, maybe you have a scrape and it's an owie and it's not that big a deal, but your parent, that's where it starts. Your parent goes, oh, I'm sorry you have an owie. I know that hurts. Kiss the boo-boo. Mm-hmm. You instantly go, oh, it's all better. And you go about your way. Or you have the parent who's like, you're fine. Just
rub some dirt on it.
Yeah, you're fine. Whatever. And that's sort of how that process starts with you, that process of that emotional abandonment, with that invalidation. So when you're an adult, you're like, I have an owie, and you're and you're just looking for somebody to tell somebody, I have an owie, I have an owie, I have an owie. Okay, well, I don't need to hear every time you have an owie. If like, as an adult, I will validate, oh, I know that sucks, but at the same time, it's not my job to bandage your owie. If I inflicted the owie, okay,
that's
cool,
yeah.
cool. I mean, I will kiss it, make it feel better. I'll do what I need to do. But
the owie becomes more informational at that, right, as an adult. It's like, dude, I was chopping and I cut myself. I'm not looking for you to soothe my owie. I'm just telling you what happened.
Or like, even if the owie is big enough, like you are chopping something and you chop a finger off, or you slice your hand and need stitches and can't drive yourself to the hospital. Yeah. That is a large enough owie where it's like, hey, even if you did it to yourself, to go, I need help. And then that person is like, okay, well, you definitely need help. How can I help? What can I do? But if you get like a scratch, you don't tell everybody your like little minor, every bump and bruise, every time you run into a fucking counter. God, if I did, I'd be texting everybody. I ran into a desk. I ran into a thing. Yeah. I scraped my knee. Oh, like I fell in, but I am neurodivergent. I run into walls. I have I don't know how I got this, but I have a bruise. I don't know where I got it from.
I slam parts of my body into inanimate objects all the time. Don't take that the wrong way.
But what I'm saying is like, I am proud of you for doing that. That's a big step. That is a big step. And it's hard. It's hard because you then also fight the whole, am I being a burden, and am I revert? And it's so, when you start healing, things don't look the same, and it's hard because they look similar, but they're not the same. It's like tires. You know, a mud tire is still a tire and a bike tire is still a tire, but they're not the same. But you're like, oh my God, you know, am I not telling this because I ran into that with acceptance. I thought for the longest time, because I wasn't having a major emotional reaction to something, that I was disassociating. And my therapist was like, okay, let's step this back. You're not having an emotional reaction because you're okay and you feel safe. It's not the same, because before, when you were not having an emotional reaction, it was because you disassociated, but now it's not the same. And your fear of, fuck, I was disassociated, but that's not the same. And I think that that's the way with you not communicating, is like, or you not telling every little thing and making that other person responsible. It's like, am I withdrawing? Am I rationalizing? Am I doing these things? But you weren't. You were taking your own personal responsibility, and that's a huge step that is actually a very huge step for John. For those of you who don't know, him actually like doing that and taking a step back and going, wait, let me think this through by myself. Let me do this. Let me do this.
Let me do the work.
let me do the work by myself first.
Yes, yeah.
Because usually somebody will get a text. One of us in Team AOA get a text. And we are fine. We are there to be there for them. But this is actually a big step for you. And that's I'm really proud of you for that.
Well, thanks. But yeah, you're going to start all the texting.
Fuck you, Jay.
But is he wrong?
Okay, fuck you, Sean. Nobody fucking asked you. Actually, I mean, I did. It's fine.
You did. You did. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It's the challenge. The challenge is identifying where that is. What that is. Is that something I need to communicate, or is it something, am I just dysregulated and I need to regulate? And then what happens after that? So, yeah.
What is the time you felt most rejected and emotionally abandoned? What has been the hardest time that sticks out to you the most?
I'm emotionally, I don't know if I've got a specific time. Of course, there very well could be, and I've just repressed it. But
what? Us repressing? Just shut up.
Right? No, I remember. I remember with my ex. I remember sitting there where she would want to know what's wrong. You know, what's going on in my head? What's wrong? What am I thinking? And I would tell her something that she had done that upset me. And she would immediately ask for dates, times, locations. Like she'd immediately want to know all the details. And I didn't have that. Like I'm trying to tell you how I feel. I'm not going to sit here and tell you every single time that you did the thing that upset me. And I remember that's the thing that type of situation is what really sticks with me. That's where I think I developed that story that I have to have. I can't tell you how I feel unless I bring that list. And that just really sticks with me because I remember, and so it got to the point where I just wouldn't say anything if I didn't have that, or anytime she did do it, I would start making a list. Anytime that she did something that upset me, I would start making a list. I would start building my evidence. That really took a toll. And I think that really had an effect on the difficulty I have communicating how I feel. Because it was never just simply I feel this way. It was never. I never felt that was done. So,
how did that make you feel abandoned and neglected? Or
Well, because it was
You can explain that while I use the bathroom.
okay. Yeah. Um, because I felt like she was. I felt neglected. I felt like she wasn't hearing me. She wasn't seeing me. She was. She wanted. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to talk about how I felt, and she wanted empirical evidence to prove it. And so I didn't feel like, okay, she didn't care. Now I say this, fully admit, I I did I did the same thing, and I try really hard not to continue to continue doing the same thing. So it wasn't that like I wasn't innocent in my side. I did the same thing. But in this situation, I I felt like, okay, so it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter how I felt. And so I got to the point where that's where I started skipping. I just completely would skip the whole middleman. Okay, I'm just not going to talk. I'm just not going to tell you how I feel. I'm just going to keep it bottled in. I'm going to suppress it. I'm going to squish it all down. Let it well up, and that's where the resentment really set in. So I felt unseen. I felt unheard. And I would just convince myself that what's the point? I'm going to save myself the argument. I'm going to save myself the frustration, and I'm just not going to say anything.
Hmm.
So I abandon. Yeah. So then I would have to sit with the uncomfortable emotions. See, this is where the other part comes in. I have to sit with my. So then I still feel the emotion. I still upset. I'm still whatever. I'm still feeling an uncomfortable emotion. Whatever, whatever happened that led to me feeling that way. And so instead of going, okay, I feel an emotion, and like just validating my own emotions, I didn't want to feel, because I wasn't going to do anything about the uncomfortable emotion. I wasn't going to talk about it. I didn't want to deal with it. So to avoid to avoid feeling the uncomfortable emotion, I would talk myself out of feeling it. I would intellectualize it. This is why I shouldn't feel this way. And so I would, because I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to feel the emotion. I wasn't going to do anything about it. So I'd convince myself not to feel that emotion. So then anytime it came up, I'm like, oh, I went into a pattern of minimizing how I felt, so that emotions just weren't important.
Okay, so my question is, because I, as somebody who with BPD, we feel our emotions all the time, and somebody described it, and I feel like that is the best description, is that somebody with BPD is, I feel it's very akin to like living constantly without 2 layers of skin. Everything is a little bit more sensitive. Everything is, by a little bit I mean a lot. So like, that is something. So I always felt all the emotions very intensely, regardless of even if they were minor emotions. But my question being is that if you convinced yourself you weren't feeling any emotions, how did you feel emotionally abandoned?
Because
what story? Maybe the question is, what story did you tell yourself? What did you like as and it's a coping mechanism. It's an adaptation to survive emotionally and mentally, and I fully admit that. But in that, if you taught yourself to intellectualize and not feel the emotion, then, and I'm not saying that you weren't emotionally abandoned or felt that abandonment.
Yeah.
What was it like? Was the abandonment, was it abandonment and then the not feeling, or was it the not feeling then the abandonment? Or did you preemptively anticipate the abandonment without actually being abandoned and then feel that? So like what, like how does that all tie in?
Yes. The answer is yes. No, it was
because that's fucking specific. All right, cool. I even gave you several avenues to go down. Just pick fucking one.
I think it was the abandonment. I think it was the abandonment and validation, leading me, me feeling unheard, me feeling unworthy, and neglected. And I think I then internalized it, and I what did you kick
I,
up? Yeah.
no, I moved my coffee mug. I can move my
Oh.
coffee mug, and it hit
Oh.
sorry, sorry.
Did you hit something, or did the coffee mug hit something?
The coffee mug hit my mic.
Oh, okay. So I think it was feeling abandoned, and my defense mechanism for that was intellectualization. Because I didn't want to deal with, if I had an emotion and it was just going to be invalidated. Well, see, that's where I transition into self abandoning. Emotionally abandoning myself is, if that emotion is just, if I'm just going to get invalidated, then I'm just going to go ahead and do it to myself. I'm just going to go. I mean, I'm.
Isn't that the worst?
It is
That is
absolutely the worst.
that is absolutely the worst because
Hmm.
like I don't know about you, Sean. That is the worst for me. Like when you realize that you've been pretty much just like that's your survival mechanism.
Just kind of, you give up. You're like, why am I going to put myself through the stress of the other person invalidating me and neglecting me and getting defensive and having, why am I going to compound this with that? I'm just going to skip that step, and I'm just going to do it to myself, and then I'll just deal with it myself.
But then we are predicting. And
Yes.
then we are not allowing the authentic situation. Then it's emotional manipulation. And that's also, it's like you are already predicting, okay, they're just going to go ahead and invalidate me. This is like they have every other time. They're like, you are constantly, or even if this person hasn't given you any reason to abandon you or invalidate you or sabotage you or hurt you, but it's happened to you in the past. So in turn, you are then making a choice for that person. You are predicting the future that hasn't even happened. That is emotional manipulation. That is a mental manipulation. And the problem is that, I don't know about you, Sean, but for me, I convinced myself that they were the ones being manipulative. That here I am. It's like I was making these choices on a perceived reaction that hasn't even fucking happened yet. So in turn, I was over here. And then when confronted with that, well, why did you do that? When they got rightfully upset with me. And I'm like, well, I did it because I was afraid, or I did it because of this, or I did it because of that. And I never allowed them the opportunity because it wasn't the truth. It was the truth based on what I perceived it to be. And they didn't do anything wrong. I was the one that did something wrong. And I was justifying it in my head. I lied, or I hid something, or I wasn't transparent, or I was all of these things because I was afraid of the abandonment. I was afraid that they would get mad. I was afraid that they would leave me or whatever. So I went ahead and did it ahead of time.
Yes.
To protect myself. I protected myself before it even happened. Yeah. And then when it came down to it, and I got confronted with it, or I had to, or I came clean about it, or whatever, and I justified it in my head. I did it because I didn't want to get in trouble, and they were the enemy, and but I never gave them the opportunity. It just made me look like the liar. It made me look like the bad guy. I was the one lying to them. They weren't lying to me because I never gave them the opportunity to lie to me or be mad at me or upset with me.
It's easier to abandon ourselves than to have someone else abandon us. So yeah, it's absolutely became a defense mechanism. But in the same relationship, it's like, how many times do you what feels like slamming your head against a wall? How many times do you do that before you give up? And is there a point should you never give up within like the same relationship? Like that's becomes the defense mechanism, is like, there's a point where you just like, resign. There's a point where I just resign myself to, well, this is never going to change. This is just how it is. It's never going to change. Should we keep pushing, or should we just resign ourselves? Like, how many times? How long?
Yes, but is it never going to change? Is it never going to change, or is it you don't want to change?
Or is it just me telling myself it's never going to change?
Yeah, and I think that I learned that, especially after the separation and like doing therapy and coming to that realization, is that I was like, he's never going to change. They're never going to change. They're never going to change. They are who they are, and in reality, yeah. Because I can't control other people, or I can't control situations. I can't at that. However, it can change because I can change. I can change how I handle a situation. I can change how I approach a situation. I can change how I see, view, treat, speak to the other person. And maybe not. And I can't control the other person. But when I change, it does change. Mm-hmm. So when we resign ourselves to that, it's never going to change. They're never going to understand. They're never going to do this. Never and always are the statements that you shouldn't use, because they're never going to change. Well, the reality is maybe not, but you can change. Mm-hmm. So it will change. And if you're sitting in that whole resignment of, this is just how it is, well, then that's on you. Yeah. And that's the fucking hard part, is taking that accountability. And I'm not saying taking the responsibility of everything that happened, everything that bad happened. Well, then they wouldn't have done that if I hadn't done that. No. They're still their own person. They still take the accountability for that. But this whole, especially for those of us who feel the abandonment wound so deeply, and that abandonment wound and that trauma has like literally sculpted our thinking, our feeling, our personalities, everything about ourselves, and it comes down to that abandonment. You having to realize they didn't abandon me, I abandoned us a long time ago.
And my resigning myself to just not communicating that, she then interpreted as me abandoning her, because I wasn't saying anything, regardless of how I felt about her reaction, how she was going to react to it. I just stopped communicating. So then she felt abandoned, and she has her own abandonment wounds. And so then she reacted in the way that she knew to react to my abandoning her. And that is a cycle that is incredibly difficult to break. Unless you do, like you just said, unless someone does something different, unless I do something different. And I was not at a point in my mental health where I was doing that. I got to a point where I just resigned myself, and in part, and that was a defense mechanism to absolve myself of responsibility of doing anything. Well, this is just how it is. So then I didn't feel responsible.
The shitty thing about growing up in the church with that, and the feeling of abandoned and feeling of being misunderstood and not heard, because they tell you God is everywhere. They tell you that you're never alone. You never walk alone. That you're never alone. That even when you feel alone, you're never alone. And like, that's a justification of, okay, well, you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't feel abandoned. You shouldn't feel alone. You shouldn't feel unheard and like nobody cares, because
God's listening.
God's there. God's listening. God's always there. But God doesn't talk back. God doesn't sit there and hold your hand. God doesn't, God doesn't, okay, you can feel hurt, but God doesn't validate how you feel. God, and if you would think about it, nothing about
It's
Jesus or God validates how you feel, how you feel other than, anyway, but that's a,
if you're waiting for God to validate your feelings, you're going to be waiting a long time. I know that because I waited 40 years. Just talk about invalidating and feeling unheard. Just pray about it. Hey, I'm having this problem in my marriage. I'm my spouse. Just pray. You need to pray about it. You need to get in the Word. You just need to read your Bible. Here's a devotional. You just need to pray about it. That's where a lot of the abandonment comes from. That's how people spoke to me. That's how I spoke to people, and that's just something I have to accept. That's where I was in my life. That's what I did. That's where I was. But it's a bit embarrassing having deconstructed to go, oh my God, I said that to people. There was a person who I haven't talked to in over 20 years, and that was the last thing I said to them. They had a problem. They were trying to work through a problem, and they needed to be heard. And I just told them they needed to pray about it multiple times. They said, well, I appreciate you talking to me. They hung up, and I have not heard from them in over 20 years. And I feel that the way I handled that conversation is the reason I haven't heard from them.
Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely the reason. If you had ever told me that, ever in our lifetime.
Ever. But that's, you
go sit and spin on that Bible. You fucking, I would have had a few colorful words for that, but that's fine. It's emotional abandonment is so. It's the silent wound.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's easy to, especially when you are coming from a religious background, because it's that wound that you don't tell people. It's that wound that you don't want to admit is there. You don't want to admit that you feel alone. You don't want to admit that you feel unworthy. You don't want to admit any of that stuff. It's that shame or that argument, because you're not alone. You're never alone. You're never alone. So you were the problem. You were the problem. You're never alone, so you shouldn't feel that way. So it has to be your problem.
Ooh. And
a lot of times in our, we've talked about this several times in our religious podcast, and we've taken that on. We've taken on that mantle, whether it be subliminally or outright. That's been said to us over and over and over again, and we believed it.
Mm-hmm.
My feelings don't matter. I don't matter, and it's my fault. Oh, I just make Sean uncomfortable.
Now, I was thinking about trigger warning. How many times have we attempted to express that, or even express it to ourselves? I feel alone. I feel isolated. And the response, either from externally or from internally, has been, yeah, but like, you have people around you. You have a spouse, or you have this person or that person. Why would you feel alone? You have people around you. You have, that's how many of us have had people around us and still felt totally isolated.
I think that's so, like, everybody has. I think that's a common thing. Like, if you see even in the media and like movies and TV shows and just people in general, now that they're being open and honest and talking about it, how they feel like inside, when you have that invalidation, when you have that life where you aren't allowed to express how you're feeling, and you're not getting that supportive system around you, you feel like you're screaming on the inside. You feel like you're dying. You feel like this pain, and you feel this sadness, and you feel this, all of the emotions, and nobody can hear you. Nobody is listening. nobody understands. And it's like when you do, you try to express that and then you get shot down. You're like, mm-hmm. It's like, here's this thing. You're fine. You've got all these other things, these great things. You're just focusing on this negative.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, are there people who only focus on the negative? Yes.
Oh, you told me. Oh, yeah.
Oh, see, I wasn't going to say anything. You called your own self out. I just want to let that know. You absolutely just called your own self out.
Because, like, your face didn't have subtitles. Come on. Really?
No one had to know. That was it was only speculation until you did it.
No, I will fully admit that. I will completely admit that. That is part of my journey. I have a bias towards the negative in my life. I have a bias towards the negative with everything. I wouldn't say just in my life. I have a bias towards negative. So when something happens, I tend to look for evidence to prove the worst situation, worst case, the worst outcome, the negative outcome, as opposed to the positive. Oh, instead of it's like this sucked versus this is challenging. Like for me, it's like, oh, this sucked, as opposed to, oh, this is challenging. This is going to help me grow. Well, that totally sucked.
I suck. I think that's the other thing.
Yeah,
I suck. You take it, take it internally. Mm-hmm. But I think when there's that whole point of, yeah, I have really great things in my life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But are these things that are perceived as great to other people? Is that what is important to me? And I think that is where a lot of people are like, well, fame, fortune, let's say fame, fortune, beauty, whatever. And I'm not saying that those are superficial things. I mean, because some people work really, really hard for all of that, and I am not negating that. But what is important to somebody else may not be important to you. And in turn, it may have been important to you and you got it and you realized, this is not important to me anymore. Mm-hmm. Maybe this wasn't what I expected. And that's okay. That's okay. Mm-hmm. But then being able to express that and go, you know what? No, I'm not happy. Yep. I finally have this. And then, but that other person who maybe doesn't have that, or maybe wants that, or values that, mm-hmm. will tell you, well, you have everything you want. I don't understand why you're not happy. And they honestly can't. They honestly can't understand why you're not happy. And that's, yes, you can be empathetic and listen and validate your feelings. But I also can't get mad at that when they value something that I have that maybe they don't have or they want. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. It's hard to play that balance between that. But and at the same time, I'm going, it's still not important to me.
Yeah.
But nobody understands. Nobody understands. Well, then you know what? Maybe it's time I found people who do understand. And it's not for me to make you understand. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where it's hard. When you're in a room full of people that are telling you, you have everything that's good. Why are you unhappy? Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what they did in the church. You have God's love. That's all you ever need.
Yes.
Is God's love. I'm also suffering mentally and emotionally, but that's fine. Because God's love is going to heal the trauma that I'm having at home, or the bullying that I'm having at school, yes. or the SA that happened to me, but it's God's love. Mm-hmm. God's love. Sure.
Yeah. Or hear these Bible verses about sacrifice, or these Bible verses about God won't give you more than you can handle, or like, right? Sorry, I should have trigger worded that one. But that's the stuff that I grew up on. It was never.
No, for real. I got asked massively. Like that one, that is the most invalidate. Come on, Sean. Come on. How many times did you hear that? How many times did you hear that? You want to talk about emotional abandonment and invalidation? Yes. Fuck that shit. God will never give you more than you can handle. And you know what? Like it used to happen. Like this was the phrase in our house, like my house. God will never give you more than you can handle. But I wish he didn't trust me this much, because it was acknowledgement that what I was going through, yeah, I'm going to survive it. And yes, there is yes, I can survive hard things. But that's okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
you need to go. You need to take this off. I need to take speaking of trigger, I need to take this down a minute. So you go ahead.
That is the way I was brought up. And I think a lot of people may have brought up with that idea of, well, God's in control. It's part of God's plan. Yeah, there's another one. Hey, Asta. Yeah, survive this, but it's gonna be it's part of God's plan. It's all, I'm like, really? God meant for this. Really? Wait, so
but they would never give you the way to work your way through it, except for just pray about it and just rely on God.
Yeah, or people would go, well, you should talk to your pastor. You should, like, it was never, hey, you might want to talk to a therapist. The idea of going to a therapist was completely foreign to me until I was in my 30s. That was going to a therapist was never an option. It was always go to your pastor. I was always talking to your pastor, talk to your church leaders, but they would tell me the same thing, which is, here's some scriptures and here's some reasons you shouldn't feel that way because God's in control. What they're saying is that you shouldn't feel this way because God's in control. God being in control is supposed to give me solace. No, it doesn't. Because if this is God's in control, maybe I don't want him to be in control. This is pretty terrible, right? There you go. That exactly, right? This is the God that I'm supposed to believe in and trust and want to, be like? Really? Because this is sucky. But I look back and go, that's what I kind of how I felt. But I was trying. Here's the one.
Jay, God has a plan. I hope he has a plan for you getting hit.
Right? God, that was part. You getting smacked in the face. Yeah, that was God's plan. Must have been God's plan.
It was God's plan. God's plan.
Pray about it. You need to pray about it. That's bad enough. But the one that makes it degrees worse is when they add the hard enough, and when they add the enough to it. You didn't pray hard enough. When it became a matter of degrees, it's not just doing the thing, it's doing the thing good enough. Because that never solved anything. So when the problem wasn't fixed, if I prayed about it, if I prayed for something and then that thing didn't happen, the problem wasn't anyone else. The problem was me. I failed because I didn't pray hard enough, strong enough, enough times. It was always my fault.
I love our community.
Yeah.
You should see their comments. Like, if God is like, why the fuck do I feel so miserable? God is so bad at this. I'm unplugging the controller. Wait, I can get an insufficient grade for prayer. Our community is awesome.
That's it. That's exactly it, Twannis. Yes.
Yeah, it's like yeah, exactly. And it's so hard. It's hard to have that DNF did not finish on the race to heaven. No, you know what? That was a forced quit on me. That's a forced quit on me.
That was a rage quit. The TV is now perfect.
We rage quitted religion.
Deconstructing is now rage quitting.
Oh my God, that's exactly deconstruction equal rage quitting. It's like, yeah. Oh my God, that's the fucking.
Love you guys. You guys are fantastic.
I think emotional abandonment in that, and it just got so much in it. A lot of it, so much is subliminal. Religion speed run anyway.
Oh my God.
Oh, I love you. Y'all make my day. Y'all make my day. This is why I have the best community in the fucking world. We have the best community in the world, like for real, in the world, literally in the world.
In the world, absolutely.
Oh my god, I fucking
love
them.
You guys.
In that emotional abandonment, that feeling, that abandonment wound, is so hard to recognize because the wound is very much a trauma that is hidden under different traumas. It is disguised as other things. So and it really is the abandonment wound, any type of abandonment wound, which is why it's so important. It's so important to address that trauma, because once you start peeling back these layers, you start peeling back and you start, okay, I do this thing, and you think it's one thing, and you start peeling it back, and you realize the abandonment wound is the thing that's driving the truck. It's the thing that's driving your life. It's the thing that is driving your personality. It is driving the reason you do the things you do. It is driving how you feel about things. And once you start healing that, it's a trickle down effect. All of a sudden, these other things that you thought were things, it's all of a sudden you're like, oh, those weren't real, or they were real, but those were just an after effect. They're a side effect of the abandonment. And sometimes the abandonment wound won't ever completely heal. Unfortunately, that is just a thing. Yes, you can start feeling secure. Yes, you will. Yes, you can experience secure attachment. Yes, you can feel, but that thing is going to flare up every now and then. It's just like you manage that more than you actually heal from it. I still feel the abandonment, but I'm also able now, the more work I do, the more time and energy I put into myself, I now can recognize this isn't what I used to think it was. This is my abandonment wound. I'm still feeling the same way, but I also approach it with a little bit more compassion. I can approach it with a healthier way of communicating that. And I also can acknowledge my needs and then communicate that, when before I wasn't able to. But that doesn't mean that I'm not still feeling the same way.
Yes.
The fear of abandonment, the insecurities, the fucking feeling invalidated, unheard, unseen, and frustrated. I literally just got in a discussion like that where I was feeling like, I think 2 or 3 nights ago, I was having a discussion where I was trying to voice a concern to someone, but they took it the wrong way, or took it a way that I wasn't conveying. And I was feeling so frustrated and so deflated. And we got to a place where it was okay, but I was feeling angry and I was feeling deflated, but I was like, well, at least my point got across, but I still don't feel good about this. And the reality is that I felt unheard and I felt unseen. But maybe I wasn't communicating effectively, and just I still acknowledged, I still feel deflated, I still feel this way, but in the reality, when I zoom out and look at the big picture, my point got across. Was it pretty? No. But it still happened. But my abandonment wound was like, well, they don't understand.
Yeah.
They're not getting it. They don't understand.
Yeah.
And then I was very aware of my thoughts of them going, they just don't want to see, and they're never, like you said, they're never going to change, and they're just doing the thing. Whatever that thing is, we all have thought that. They're just doing the thing.
Yeah.
You're like, what thing are they doing exactly?
Yeah, or they're doing that thing to spite me, to hurt me. It's that their actions, it's attributing malice to their actions. That's the one that I deal with a lot. That. Go
ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, but that abandonment wound, whether we realize it or not, that abandonment speaks volumes in our world, in our head. It's not always obvious. It's often not obvious, but it is a driving force behind a lot of our responses, or a lot of our reactions.
Absolutely. You want to know the one that they're just like, and not just that they want to hurt me
Mm-hmm.
or that they're trying to hurt me. And this is still a hard one for me to remember, especially when I'm in a triggered state. But this thought, maybe they don't know that they're doing it. I didn't.
Mm. Yeah.
I'd come off like in how I communicated in a trigger state. I came off very aggressive, very know-it-all, very declarative, very like, very, don't even start with me, defensive boy. Don't even start.
Wait, we're not talking about me though.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna start calling you Armadillo because you fucking all you would do like like we gonna start that. Okay. Mm-hmm. No, for real. I mean, Sean's been on the receiving end of that often. It is what it is. But like, I come off this way, and I wasn't communicating, and maybe they don't. It's like, well, I told them, so they obviously just didn't listen. Well, no, maybe they just haven't done the work on that yet. Is that an excuse for them? No. But at the same time, it's like, I'm over here trying to make them the villain. That doesn't change their actions. Just like if you do something that hurts somebody else, even if you didn't mean to, that doesn't change the fact that you hurt somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But you can be aware of it the next time.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't. I would always be like, they're trying to hurt me. They're not trying to hear me. They are not.
They
like,
don't care.
They don't care. Well, they do care, but we have to tell them, like, we have to grow, and we can't force somebody else to grow and learn and do the healing process either. Maybe they're not where we're at in our communication skills, and it's our job to try to work through that or not. And that's okay too.
Maybe their world doesn't revolve around us, and they do care about us, but their world doesn't revolve around us. So the thing that they're doing is for them and not to spite us or to because they don't care about us, but they don't care about me. They're just living their life and doing their thing.
Or just protecting themselves. Maybe they're having a reaction or they're being triggered and they're just doing what they know how to do to defend themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whew.
So tell me, Sean.
Okay.
By the way, y'all, I'm going to reiterate this again. This topic is all about Sean. Sean, I said, Sean, you get to pick the topic today.
She did. Uh-huh. Yep. And of course I responded with, "Oh, sure, totally. I'm happy to do that." That was all lies.
Via text, so I couldn't hear his tone of voice.
Yeah. It was like, "I'm sorry, you want me to do what?" Mm-hmm.
Tell me 3 major things that have been impacted in your life because of your feeling of abandonment or any type of emotional abandonment.
It is very difficult for me to feel secure in any relationship or friendship. One way that manifests is this is especially true in relationships, like romantic relationships. I am only as secure as the last interaction. So if there is some sort of uncomfortable, if there's a fight, if there's just an exchange that I feel weird about, my abandonment that wound immediately makes itself known, and I start to overthink that moment, and I start to question things, and I start to feel unsafe, insecure because of that one thing. As opposed to I ignore all of the evidence, all of the past, all of the other things that would make me feel secure, and I become fixated on that last interaction.
That's why.
And in many times, that last interaction for the other person was either not a big deal to them, or they've moved on. They've moved on. As soon as that moment ended, they've moved on, and I'm here hyper fixated on that moment. Yeah, this is the thing between the um, yeah. This is something that's been there. So I feel only as secure as the last interaction. That's hard. That creates a lot of anxiety, and I have to when that still happens. It's not something that I'm just cured of. It's something that I manage. It's when things happen and I begin to feel that I identify. Oh, okay, I'm feeling this because this happened. I'm like, that's just a point in time. It's just a point in time. The thing happened, and I may feel uncomfortable about it, but I'm telling myself I feel bad because I'm telling myself a story about how they perceive that moment. I feel insecure because I believe that they felt something different. And so it's recognizing what that is and then looking at the evidence of that contradicts that story that I'm telling myself.
Why do you think do you think that your abandonment fears contribute to your perception of situations?
Yeah. Because I feel that I am not worthy of that. I'm just not worthy. And so my tendency is to identify evidence to prove my theory, prove the story that I've told myself. Um, I call them dots. I start connecting dots to say, see, they said this, they did that, and that is a dot. That is I connect that dot to another dot, and I create this picture, and I kind of ignore the dots that would change that picture, the positive ones, and I just become fixated on the ones that prove the way I see myself, which is not positive. Um, I become fixated on those negative outcomes. Here's an example. So, um, I can become instead of focusing on the time I get to spend with someone. Let's say that there's someone there's someone that lives far away, and I get envious of the time spent with them that I can't spend with them versus the time that I do get to spend with them. And this is virtual, this is physical, this is like in person, this is whatever. I can become envious of that. So instead of going, wow, when I got to see that person, I really enjoyed this time that we had together. I instead look at all the time that I don't have with that person. And then and then I said, well, and then I start making up stories about that. This could be someone that is, I mean, this could be anybody. This happens with a lot of people. Um,
How how does that with that, how can you ever be present and grateful for the time that you do have with them if you're constantly isn't it you that is like how can you ever be grateful for the time that you do have for that?
I'm not. That's the problem. I've that's actually clicked in my head recently. And I thought back to a lot of people in my life that I've done this with, and I realized I'm not appreciative of what I have, of the time spent. I become fixated on on the opposite, and so I create this world that can't possibly look positive. That is, it's a constant focus on the negative. It's awful. I'm not appreciative of that. That's what I've come to realize is, oh my God, I'm not appreciative of the time. So because anytime that I don't have, I become fixated on that instead.
So it'll never be enough.
It's never enough. Yes. Because there's always time, because you can't spend all the time with someone. It's not healthy to do that. So I have a perpetually negative outlook on the time with other people, how time is spent. Yeah. Ew. Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
I am watching the discomfort, like,
Yeah.
totally, like, he's feeling actually a little nauseous right now. I can tell.
I am a little bit. I'm like, oh God, ooh, it feels. It feels. I got the ick.
Good the ick. Camino.
Kevin is like, I feel, Kevin. It feels like you want to convince me that you need to switch coasts.
In that turn, though, yes, you need to be careful. Like, why is everything about you?
Oh well, yeah, that's a valid point.
You being happy, your time, and yes, we need to take care of ourselves. But being accepting that other person, these other people, are their own people, their own lives. And they're going to do things that you're not going to like. And that might hurt you. But that doesn't mean that they're out to absolutely, like, they're out to hurt you or out to be the bad guy, or that they're to be the bad guy, but they're out doing. And I think that is a hard thing when you have a unaddressed, I don't want to say healed, because that's like but an unaddressed, and your like abandonment wound, I know is for me. Because you don't want that other person to be happy. You want that other person to be happy only as you see fit. Because that soothes your abandonment. Because if they're happy how you see fit, if they're doing the things that you want to do and they're doing the things, then that means that my wound, you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything.
It's an attempt to soothe.
Right. And it's not.
But it's never enough.
Person. It's not ever enough. It's never enough.
That's what's like not insidious about it. Is like, subconsciously, I feel like if they just spent more time, if I just had more time, like that's the driving force behind it. But the reality of it is, it's never enough. And really, the more that gets fed, the more that is fed, as opposed to addressing the wound, the worse it can become. Because if let's say that person does feed into that, where they begin spending all of their time with you, then when the situation arises that butts head against that pushes up against that wound can actually, it can break open worse. You can have a bigger reaction because you've been kind of feeding in that insecurity. So when that insecurity gets pricked, it can bust wide open. So, And
the reality is like they do that, and then it isn't about the happiness of that other person. It is it is like they lose their autonomy. They lose their role in your life is not as a fulfillment and enjoying their company as who they are as a person. Then their role becomes, trust me, I've done this too many times to count, and I don't like the fact that I admit this, but it becomes, it's less, it's not about them being in your life and them being happy. It's about them being able to soothe you. And then if they go and say, I'm going to do this because I've done, again, I've done this more times than I'd like to count in my lifetime. You have the friends that soothe you, that comfort you. You're not dating. You always said you were never dating. But then they go date somebody else. And you feel a certain way. And here's the thing is, I don't know how many times I have dated somebody and wanted to date somebody only because they were dating someone else. And then I realized that it's not the fact that I want to date them or want to be their significant other. It's only because I'm feeling abandoned and forgotten because now they have somebody else is making them happy. So I'm going to do everything I can to reclaim that, even if that means all of a sudden I fall in love with them. And then we start dating, and then you're like, okay. And then you realize, okay, it's all wonderful for a minute because they've soothed that fear of abandonment.
But once it's soothed,
you're like, oh, now I remember why we were dating in the first place. And then for those of us who are who grew up in the religion, now we can't have trouble getting rid of them because it's like, I can't break up with them. They're good people. I love them.
Yep. Oh, it's vicious. That is, yeah.
Right.
It's the person stops becoming a person. They stop being a human. They become a salve. They become an ointment. They become they're not human anymore. They're just they're an object for you to soothe yourself. They're an object for me. They're my fit. Yeah, they're an object for me to feel better, to make me feel better. And I'm like, oh, that's you realize I realize I've stopped treating them like a human. Ugh, that's all.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. Good. All thanks to feeling abandoned and your abandonment wounds. Brought to you by
abandonment wounds. There's a reason therapists touch on that.
Often.
Because it drives so much of our unhealthy behaviors.
Yeah.
We often don't realize it, especially if we're not in therapy.
It's your Trojan horse. It's the Trojan horse of mental health.
It is. Oh my God.
It's the Trojan horse.
Yes. Wow. Abandonment is the Trojan horse.
The Trojan horse of your mental health.
But you're right. You're right.
Oh, that hurt a little bit. Because it's hurting me. It's fine. It's hurting me a little bit. Yeah. I'm just really a lot better at masking it.
Oh man.
No, it is, and it's hard. And like I said, it is your Trojan horse. It often, and it's not just one, it's multiple. Like, it often looks like different things. An unlubed Trojan horse, right?
That's true.
They can cut just as dear. I mean, you're right. But I know it seems like it's very scary when you address that wound, and just to know that it's there, because then you have to face some realities of how it got there. And how you've learned to cope and develop around it. Just like a tree, you see all these trees with objects that, that aren't supposed to be there, but they've grown around, like the bicycles and the shit. I mean, you survive through it. You do. And you will continue to grow and survive around it. But it's not ever going to go away.
And it changes you.
And it does change you forever. Yeah. You'll never be like, and I think also just addressing and just making sure you're not, well, what if I hadn't? What if they had done this? It's fine. You didn't feel validated or seen or heard, and you felt alone then. And you may be feeling alone and unseen and unheard now. That doesn't mean that you can't grow and that you can't heal and that you're not going to survive it. And why is, and I often ask myself this, why is my fear, why am I so afraid of being abandoned? What is it that is getting triggered? What part of myself is feeling fearful? This is a lot about like where that like some of the roots of your trauma. Mm-hmm. Or at least it did for me. I can't say that for other people. Again, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I think that for me, when I was really digging into my trauma work, that, you know, what am I so afraid of? What am I afraid of? I'm afraid of being abandoned. Okay. Why am I afraid?
Yeah.
Why am I afraid of being abandoned?
What is that saying? Yeah, that's come up in mine. So what if they do leave? Okay, so what does it look like if they do? Then what does that mean? Why is that so painful? Why does that hurt so much? Oh, it's because them leaving tells me that I interpret their leaving as I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of friendship. I am unlovable. That's where the abandonment wound.
When you get subliminally told that as a kid, maybe not outright, because I don't think our parents outright told us that, but I think it's the actions, their behaviors, the subliminal messaging that got communicated to us. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you were the golden child and I was the black sheep, and yet our core belief about ourselves is that we are unworthy.
Yep. Just for different reasons. Yeah. Yep.
Fuck trauma.
Right? The thought occurred to me, is it better to realize I've got an abandonment wound or not realize I have an abandonment wound?
Oh, absolutely. Does it suck? Yeah, but absolutely. Yeah.
It is better to know that is there, because then I can at least begin to do something about it. But there's a part of me that goes, God, it sucks that why ignorance is bliss. Not really, but like there's a part of me that goes,
okay, just for our audience. Hi, Nev.
Hey, Nev.
Just for our audience. And let's be honest, because I will be honest too. How many times in this process of like working on ourselves and going through therapy and healing the wounds and you know, becoming mentally healthier, have you often said, especially in the times when it's stupid hard and it's stupid painful, that you've gone, I wish I didn't know, or I wish I could go back, or it was so much easier when. Mm-hmm. And how many times did you also then get challenged either by somebody else or your therapist going, was it easier? Was it better? Mm-hmm. Do you really not want to know? Or is it just because it was something that you were comfortable and used to?
That's it. That's where it comes from.
And then I'm like, listen,
I don't need you to be good at your job.
I don't need you to be right. Like, especially when it's like a friend or somebody else telling me that. Was it really easier?
Oh, yeah.
Are you really better off or not better off? Are you really worse off now knowing these things about yourself? And then you're like, listen, I don't need you to be fucking, I am not here for you to be fucking right. Like, I don't need
that's not how this works.
Right. And then you try to argue with them, and then you realize how stupid you think to argue with them. You're like,
how many times have I argued with you just to end up getting back to the point where I realized you were right? Or I tell you,
how many times?
I tell you you're wrong, and the reason I tell you you're wrong is an explanation of the reason you're right.
How many times?
It's happened a few. It's a few. It's occasionally. This is good. Most of our interactions.
No, though, in reality, Sean, we make fun of like this dynamic that I know everything and Sean knows everything. That's not true. Sean is actually quite insightful, and he is actually. There have been several times where he's like, "Okay, well, have you thought about this?" Or and I'll be like, "Listen, bitch." That'll be my thing. It's like, listen,
that is it.
Listen, lots of dots. Listen.
Yeah.
And that's when he knows that he's right. Is that I'm like, listen. He's like, I'm listening. And I'm like,
go ahead.
Fucking shit.
I'm all ears. Tell me I'm wrong.
Is it better to know if you have cancer or better not to know? And I think that is true. It's very similar in that.
It's a lot of it's about the comfort, the perceived comfort level. Because healing is hard. They're both hard, just hard in different ways.
Yeah.
And I think the discomfort comes in, for me, it comes in the accountability. Once I know that I'm doing it, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, this is what's going on. If I choose not to do anything, I am actively choosing to not do anything. And that's on me. Because I now know it, it's on me to do something about it. Whereas if I don't know it, I can't do anything if I don't know it. If I don't know about it. That's the victim. That's the victim mentality.
You know what's so crazy is that it shines through in that if you don't know, like the golden child can't do anything wrong. It's not me.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
It's not
absolutely.
Me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
No.
It can't be me.
Nope.
Whereas as the black sheep of the family, it's always me. I instantly go, even if it's somebody else, I'm instantly going, well, it has to be me. What am I doing? That's where I go to. You go, how is it somebody else?
Else's fault.
I instantly go to, how is it my fault? Both are shitty, and both fucking
yeah, absolutely, and both involve our abandonment. Yay, great.
How is it my fault? So I can make it better, so that nobody will abandon me. And you're like, it can't be my fault. It's somebody else's fault. So you can't abandon me because it's not my fault.
Because it's not my fault. I keep my perfect. Yeah, I keep that together.
Yay, trauma.
That's why we have a podcast.
That is why we have a podcast. All right. Well, you know what, Sean? Good job.
Thank you. You too. This is a good. I think this is a good topic.
You were so worried. You were so fucking worried.
I was. We had a conversation before the podcast. I was a little worried.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Just a little worried.
Just a little bit.
But he succeeded. Look at you.
Aw, thanks. You're a great co-host. I like doing this podcast with you.
Do you?
I do. I mean, I fight it, but I do.
Do you?
I do. I mean, there are moments. We have moments. Gold star brother. Yeah, thanks, Kevino. I like Kevin as gold stars.
Aw, tell me you don't like being called a good boy without telling me you don't like being called a good boy.
I can have a praise kink without using the terms good boy. I'm a golden child. Do you think I don't?
Can you?
That's another podcast. That's a whole other. Yeah. So,
all right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Jay.
Thanks, Jay. I didn't.
Not wrong. We all know he likes being called a good boy. Look at him try and fight it. Look at him try and fight it.
Dare. On that note.
Coming in wrong podcast. I mean, you right.
Yeah.
On that note, thanks for joining us. You guys stay safe. For those of us in the States, a lot of us are about to get hit with a nice little Arctic blast. Woo! Of course, the Texans are losing their fucking mind.
Of course.
And I'm like, dude, y'all, Relax.
All right, Twanis, I don't need you piling on. Come on, Twanis.
They're just trying to show how much they love you, Sean.
Yeah.
I know. I can't wait to see you again, dude.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin.
We love you.
Yeah.
I'm watching the fluffy white bullshit from the. Oh, really? Fucking that's horseshit. Oh, that's see. I love snow. I love snow. Like when I went to go visit, I know we gotta go, but just random, chit chat. I love snow. When I went to go. Actually, my very last time spending extended time with my mother, she was in Alaska, and it was during winter time. It was like right at the end of the year, and snow up to my hips. I fucking loved it. I love the cold. I love it, and I like the hot. There's so many people I would prefer. I like both of them. What's bullshit is when it's humid. I don't mind the heat.
The worst.
I don't mind the
humidity.
Heat. I hate the humidity, and I don't mind the cold. I just hate the wind.
Yeah. But in this area, we don't get snow, we get ice, so it's a little different.
Oh my god, yeah, the whole milk and sandwich thing.
Yes. Oh god, the 3 most perishable items. I don't know. Is that worldwide or is that just us?
It's just us because we're stupid Americans.
We're idiots. We are. Oh my god, we are so stupid when it comes to this stuff. My god. Let me go out and buy bread, milk, and eggs, the 3 most perishable items in that entire store.
Yeah, but the whole thought behind it is because you can put the milk and the eggs out in the snow if the power goes out.
Okay. I mean, I guess, sure.
Have you never done that?
No.
Got fires, want to trade. I mean, fair enough. I mean,
you could use some snow right now.
And the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, they're saying we got floods. What you got? Like, what you got? It's like almost got like natural disaster trading cards.
Oh my god! Don't give someone an idea. Oh Lord!
Collect them all?
No, I don't want to collect them all. Wait, don't forget the fire NATOs.
The Fire NATOs? Is that like Sharknado? Ooh, is that like the collector's edition of Sharknado? It's like
jeez.
Milk and egg popsicles.
Oh god. On that note, all right.
Sean, are you quick to get off? Are you quick? Are you ready to go?
No, I'm just like no, I'm good. I got nowhere to be. It's a Sunday. It's a holiday weekend. I got nowhere to be.
I know. That's why I'm like, damn. I'm so
and tomorrow's the beginning of the end, so it's cool. It's cool. We're good.
We do not talk about politics on this show.
Who said I was talking about politics?
We support all political affiliations and faith. We respect them. That is where we're leaving it.
So wherever you are, stay safe, whether it's snow, ice, or fire. Flood, exactly. Sharknadoes.
By the way, I actually do. I've always wanted to go to the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to go to that, like, it's so different over there. Their views, their ideas, their culture. It's like, it's pretty awesome, actually. And I'm not saying this to butter you up. I like that, like, that's for real. I heard my country. yeah. I always wanted to go, like, and spend some time there. There's no roads that lead there, you moron.
There are roads there.
Somebody needs to go back to geography class.
I want to go where Lego. They have all the Legos.
There are roads that lead there. Oh, nice.
See. Look, thank you, Twanis.
Just not from the States.
That's what I meant. You fly and then you road trip.
Oh my god! Or you could just fly there. That's less impressive than you think it is.
Now you say it's less impressive, but for us, it would probably be pretty impressive.
Because it's not as oppressive.
Okay. Whoa! Didn't you just? Wait a minute. Hold on.
I was having to get that in under the radar.
Okay, we just get one and we're done.
Okay, we all got one. We got our one.
I mean, considering the state you live in, I think it's fair to. I mean, let him drive.
Hitting the AMRAP keys.
Exactly. Hey, once I find those MRAP keys, we're gonna drive there. Mm-hmm.
Reach there.
It'll be it's an amphibious vehicle, right?
Anything can be an amphibious vehicle if you really want it to be. It doesn't mean it'll be that way for long.
Wow. Oh my god. See, right, Jay's got my back, right?
I don't know why people would want to come to the U.S. That's my big thing.
Because we're here, so yeah, it looks different, and we're also not where they're at. Depends on where they're from. So there's different there's reasons.
Everything's suspicious.
Oh my god!
I mean,
you guys are hilarious. Yes, absolutely. Oh my god.
It's fine.
It's all good. What?
Here's a random thing.
Okay.
So here used to be a tell that I was not in a good emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
Purging and rearranging furniture. Mm-hmm. Usually when I randomly just go, oh, I'm going to purge, or, oh, I'm rearranging my room. Half the time, those people who know, like Sean, will often go,
uh-oh, what's that?
What happened? What's wrong? And then I'll be like, no, nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. 2 days later.
That's a lie. Yes. Or you forgot the precursor. Usually the first one is often your hair. You start thinking about doing something to your hair.
I almost dyed it blue the other day.
See? There you go. Mm-hmm.
But I just dyed my roots. I just did my roots, but that's it.
You don't necessarily do something about it, but you like, I'm thinking about I'm going to cut my hair short. Maybe I'll cut my hair short. I'm thinking about doing something about hair. I'm like, oh God, here it comes. And then usually within a day or two, it's like, oh my God, I should like rearrange my desk or my office needs. I'm like, oh, okay, here it comes. Step 2.
So Thursday I said, I think I want to dye my hair navy blue like they did like Caitlyn and Arcane, because Arctic Fox came out with it and I was like, I could rock that.
Ooh, you could. Yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah,
then,
there it is.
And then yesterday I cleaned and organized my pantry and my bathroom.
All right. So I'm going to be checking on you later. Mm-hmm.
But I feel fine. So maybe it is fine. Maybe I'm healing.
You realize I feel fine is one of the tells, right? It always starts back here. And it works its way forward.
That's beside the point. Listen.
I've known you for a little while. If and when it happens, you have people that love you and are here to support you and to sit with you. And
but the reality is, it's because I feel out of control of my situation, which I don't understand. Like I feel very in control of all my life right now, but
sometimes there's that thing that is sitting in your brain. There's one little thing that happened that made you feel that way, and it's eventually going to work its way through.
Yeah, and that's what I'm a little concerned about, Asta, is like I haven't had a manic episode in a while.
That is a good sign, though.
And I don't. That is a good sign, but I also don't want to like make something out of nothing either. But I also recognize the signs. But at the same time, I also am trying to be very mindful of what my therapist said and going, just because the actions look the same doesn't mean that I am in the same situation and that it will always be the same. So we'll see.
Yeah, you might not.
I have not rearranged furniture. I've just purged, and those are things that I've been meaning to do for a while.
You purged multiple times just because you just realize that you need to purge.
I don't need that much junk. So maybe it's just me trying to.
And you can also do those things without going into
an episode. Right.
Yeah.
And I often want to change my hair. I mean, that's not.
Mm-hmm.
I considered purple this time too, but if I didn't have a major professional convention coming up in like a month, I would have totally gone purple or blue. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I rocked that purple hair. I'm gonna tell you.
You rock the purple hair. You rock the red hair. You rock the dark hair. I mean,
you need to try Arcane again. You haven't. I loved Arcane, and I'm so excited about the new episode.
It is so good.
It made me want to play League of Legends.
Same with me, yeah. But then I remember what the game is actually like, and I didn't.
Yeah.
MOBAs. Gotta love MOBAs.
I'll say things like I can do without my meds. Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, I've been there. I'm like, I don't need my meds. I'm fine.
I've actually had the conversation with Jay. I was like, I'm on these. Maybe I can cut back. And he's like, after you talk to your doctor. I was like, well, no. I mean, the only reason you feel
this way.
Right. I was like, no. I mean, I was like, the only reason, but now I'm healing, and maybe I'm just like, maybe it's not my meds. Maybe he's like, after you talk to a doctor.
He's right.
You right. I know. Don't ever mess with your meds without medical professionals. That's period. End of story. And I think I've had I have messed with my meds before. Bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You couldn't. All right. Do we need to watch it with you, Calvino? Is that the? You want us to watch it with you?
How far did you get? Because it does get a little slow it does get a little it's a little hard to get into in the first couple, and it gets a little weird in the second one.
It does get well. It got a little Jesus-y in the second one.
That should be our next episode.
Arcane or Jesus-y?
How Jesus like stories in pop culture.
Ooh, the Jesus stories in pop culture. Okay. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Like Arcane. It's very Jesus-y in Arcane. And there's other ones that you're just like, what?
Mm-hmm. Watch party. I love watch parties.
Yeah, Asta. I'm glad that you recognize that, and honestly, join a Discord or follow. I'm on Insta or whatever. If you ever feel like you guys we're open. Now we're not saying that we're here to be medical professionals or whatever, but we're here to as a support system. That's what our community is. Ask Calvino. Calvino didn't meet us until we were long streaming together, and there's Paragon and all this stuff. We are a support system. We are not professionals. We are not there to give you advice, but we are there to at least let you know that you're not alone. And Sean is on there at Dorian Sombra on all his socials.
I am. Yep.
So you can message him too. Or if you want to flirt with him, I feel he needs to pick me up. Go flirt with him.
What are you trying to pit me out? Is that what you're?
I'm trying to boost your self-esteem.
Oh, thanks.
Slide into his DMs.
Slide my DMs. Oh my God, you're funny.
All right, we're gonna go. Thank you for everything, you guys. Sean, good job.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks for supporting me. And
being the kick in your ass when you need it.
I was trying to figure out a good way to say that.
I felt the throat clearing. I knew exactly what that throat clearing said. For the
the other thing was a self-derogatory statement. I'm like, no, I'm not going to make a self-derogatory statement. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And if we make a buck at the same, things happen. We're not. What?
Wait, what?
Boosting your self-esteem, and if we make a buck at the same time, things happen.
Oh. What things are happening? Hold on. What podcast are you talking about?
I don't know. We're going to go. So with that, thank you guys for everything, and we will talk to you guys later.
Yep. Bye.
Hello.
Last week,
You don't even do that well from the front seat.
Okay.
And the bear is coming with the cup and spoon.
That's a straight up PBR for the table.
Yeah.
I think it called.
She ain't judging us at all.
Did you really just high five over me?
No, we didn't. You can do it
We're
again.
live.
Hey.
Hello.